Very warm namaste to everybody present here today. And thank you, Abhayji, Seenuji, and the entire Festival of Bharat team for having me here today. Um, I welcome my co-host, Major Arya, and he spoke so beautifully about his experience with the army. And my father is an ex-serviceman, so I deeply, deeply admire your experience and what the army does for our country. Moving on, I think Abhayji has said a lot of things about Dr. Swamy. It is absolutely overwhelming for somebody like me to be sitting here next to this living legend, as you rightly described him. And it's only fitting that this session is called the Warriors Adda, because I don't think, I used to always think if anybody personified the word maverick, it would be Dr. Swamy. He is a true warrior. He has always stood up for what he felt was right, and not really caring about, what the popular society thought about it. And you took away what I was going to say. I was going to mention that incident from 10th August 1976, where you walked into Parliament, and when the last of the obituaries were being read, he stood up, and when he was not even supposed to be there, he stood up and said, "Oh, Mr. Speaker, you forgot to mention democracy, which has also died." So that's Dr. Subramanian Swamy for you. So Dr. Swamy, as I start, I think because it's called the Festival of Bharat, and I'm a proud Hindu, I'm a proud Bharatiya, and I grew up with the idea where, India stood for unity in diversity. We always took so much pride, right from fancy dress competitions in school to all the annual day events. Everywhere we looked, everything we read about, it was about the diversity of the country. It was about celebrating these differences, which always existed, whether it's caste, whether it's religion. All these differences have always been there. But suddenly, at 30 years of age, I hear this word, asahishnuta. And, never had I heard this word before, and my Hindi is pretty good. So how is it that a word like asahishnuta suddenly becomes part of the public discourse? And how relevant do you think is it for today's Bharat?
Well, first of all, it's irrelevant because we have such a history. Take the example of two of the tiniest communities which came from abroad to escape persecution. The Zoroastrians, who are called Parsis in India. And they had a country called Iran, which was occupied by Islamic forces, and everybody was forcibly converted to Islam. And some of them escaped, and the only place they survived was India. And when they came to India, they came to Gujarat. The Shankaracharya was there to receive them, and we built their fire temples. And they have lived perfectly in harmony with the Hindu society. And when the British left, they approached them and said that, like for the Anglo-Indians, we can make a special quota for you in the parliament, and because this Hindu community is huge, it will swallow you. And they said to the British, for 1,000 years, they've looked after us. Now you don't teach us about what the Hindus will do to us. You go. We don't need you here. We are quite comfortable with the Hindus. Even today, in key positions, the Parsis have been there. Chief Justice, Commander-in-Chief of the Army like Manik Shah, Air Force Chief, Attorney General, and much out of proportion to their small size of 60,000 people. And this is a tribute to the Hindus. Similarly, and they themselves gave that as a tribute to the Hindus. The Jews persecuted everywhere in the world. The only place they lived without persecution was India. And when Israel was founded, after their formalities of constitution, everything was over, the parliament passed a resolution thanking India as being the only country which didn't persecute the Jews. So with this kind of record, I don't think we need to bother about intolerance and tolerance, you see. And this is something they talk about. Who are those who are talking about intolerance in India today? Those who had participated in the emergency. They may not have declared the emergency, it was declared by Mrs. Gandhi and her cabinet. But there were intellectuals who justified it. who said that India is a poor country, it can't have this kind of freedom, and the doesn't mean license, and all these ridiculous concepts. So I think just ignore it, and none of them will debate with you. And they'll only talk amongst themselves. They're a small crowd. We have to worry much more about seeing that the narrative in the media doesn't become doctored by these forces, both within India and abroad. Abroad, I can understand those who want to convert, engage in conversion, they are unhappy. Those who rue the fact that India has still evaded their control. It's openly spoken in the ISIS documents, that terrorist organization documents, that the only country which was conquered, they say, by Islam, but didn't convert to Islam, was India. Iran converted, Iraq converted, that is Mesopotamia and Babylon. Egypt converted, all of Europe converted to Christianity. But this country, despite 600 years of Islamic rule and 200 years of Christian rule through the British, is still, despite all the machinations, is still 82% Hindu. So therefore, we are quite secure, we are not worried. And I think the only thing is that the media manipulation, which leads to brainwashing, is the one thing that we have to be careful about.
I think we absolutely agree with what you said, and I think we need to celebrate our Bharatiyata more. We need to celebrate this unified spirit more, rather than getting sucked into this vortex and this debate and this divide that's being created. Coming on to another issue that you've expressed your opinion on very recently, the Sabrimala verdict.
Yeah.
And I remember you saying that
Yes.
this is a fight between Hindu Renaissance and obscurantism.
Yes.
And while as a woman, as a Hindu woman, I do agree with you that with changing times, religion needs to adapt. Don't you think it's become very easy to target Hindu traditions and belief?
Yeah.
Much, much easier. And the debate has now gone on to become completely political, nothing to do with women wanting to enter there, women like me wanting to go worship there.
Well, in the beginning, I felt that women have equal rights, and this is all nonsense that women are impure on those 5 days. Those are the things that I reacted to. But all our freedoms in the Constitution is subject to reasonable restrictions. And then a very well-known lady, software expert in California, sent me her research, which has been published in a well-known journal, that why is it that out of the five temples of that particular god, Ayyappa, only in 4 there is no restriction.
Right.
Why that one particular one, which has been given the thing that he is a bachelor and he is planning to marry, and therefore he didn't want it to be disturbed. So all those are. But that lady showed me, and I put it out in the internet also, that the topography of that area is such that women who go during that period are likely to suffer due to the differential gravitational pull from genetic disorder, that is the children. Now, I think we must, all these Naxalites and all who have tried to get in, we should now put a watch on them to see whether, I don't know whether they're going to have children or not, but if they do, we should find out. But this is worth testing, because every Indian mythological statements are backed by science. And there's a scientific background for it. Why you have to get up at 4 a.m., there's a scientific background for it. Why if you want to meditate, you should be a vegetarian. I mean, there's no compulsion that you have to be a vegetarian in Hinduism. There's no compulsion anything. It only says that if you want to do this, then you have to follow the following discipline. So I have moderated that, and plus I feel that the communists are using this to discredit the Hindu Renaissance movement itself. So therefore, I'm saying that the Kerala government made a mistake. When the judgment was given, they should have asked for about 6 months' time to convince people that this is good for them and take a poll to see whether women themselves. What I found to my surprise was that women themselves were saying to me that we don't want to go on that period. So it should have been done that way instead of trying to make it as a one-upmanship as they did. So there's a slightly moderated statement of mine.
Right.
I'm still committed to equality of rights for women, but as all rights, fundamental rights are subject to reasonable restriction, we have got to check whether this should be also one such.
Right. And Dr. Swamy, what you said reminds me of what I read, a thread by Hindol Sen Gupta. He had written a beautiful thread on Sabrimala on Twitter. And he said that, if this was about women, we would have seen thousands of women thronging to Sabrimala, who were waiting to worship, who were denied this right to pray. But we aren't seeing that. It's only a few fringe elements that are trying, that have a larger political agenda who are trying to do this. So, but Dr. Swamy, my follow-up question to that would be that the environment has become such that, the easiest thing to do is target Bharatiya traditions, Hindu traditions. What do we as Bharatiyas, all my friends sitting here in this room today, what do you think we should be doing to prevent this and to emerge stronger?
Well, 4 or 5 things you have to do. First, be clear about your identity. All these divisions that you talked about in your initial remarks, these have, some of them has got ossified and fossilized. For instance, Varna. Varna was never birth-based. And you got the authority of Lord Krishna in Gita saying that it has got to do with gunas, it's got nothing to do with birth. He specifically says it has nothing to do with birth. We have examples like Vishwamitra, who was born in a Kshatriya family. His father and mother were Kshatriyas. And he became Maharishi. Vedvyasa's mother was a fisherwoman. Kalidasa was a Vanavasi. He was in fact cutting branches of trees when the princess discovered him. I mean, he was planted on the princess, and then she found out that she had been duped by the priestly class. So she trained him, and he became the Maharishi he became a great Kavi, And you have Valmiki, who was born in a Dalit family, which was a very small fraction till the Buddhists came, and then it grew, and then when the Islamic rule came, it became a bigger population. But it was a very microscopic population, but he belonged to that. In his early years, he was a dacoit, and then one day there was a transformation, and he became a Maharishi. He wrote the Ramayana. On the other hand, you have Brahmins who have broken the rules. They have been punished. Ravan was a Brahmin. For years, the DMK, which hated Brahmins, didn't know that Ravan was a Brahmin. They were celebrating Ravan Leela instead of Ram Leela. And now, of course, after I made them wise to it, they have stopped it. I think these have then the DNA. The DNA of Indians from every part of India is the same. There's no such thing as Aryans coming from abroad, and they were previously Dravidians, and they were driven to that. That's all bunkum. Skin color has got to do with pigmentation, it's got nothing to do with race. And the climate changes facial features also. For instance, in some parts, the Kashmiris may look like different from Tamils. But the DNA is the final test. And that says we are all the same, whether we are Brahmin, scheduled caste, whatever. So these are some of the things now first, in order to fight them, internally we have to get united by knowing the truth. And then the history. History is all bunkum, that we are never one country. Then how did the Mahabharat war take place when 3,000 kings from all over India came to Kurukshetra and took sides, and battle was on? How is it that Rama went from north to south without any difficulty? How is it that Krishna went from east to west. So I think the identity is one. Second, it may seem extreme on my part, but I think that Sanskrit should be made a compulsory language, because Sanskrit induces certain behavioral changes in you which will make you unite with others. If you go to Google, you will find there's a school called St. John's School in London, where the principal, it's a all-white school, where the principal makes it compulsory for young boys to recite Sanskrit shlokas from the age of 6 to 11. And the argument is that the vibrations that it generates leads to superior brain development in such people. So like that, we need to clarify who we are, which has been completely distorted. Then fighting them is very easy.
So I think that's a pledge that we should all take back with us today, that be proud of who you are, be aware of your identity, and take pride in your beliefs, your culture. We don't have much time is what I see. I had a lot of questions for you, but just one last question from me, and then I'm going to hand it over to Major Arya. Elections are right here. I mean, we're knocking on the door of the elections. And I want to ask you, because I want to really draw on your experience to understand, we have more than 10 crore first-time voters in this country. The last survey said 13 crore new voters added. These are going to be brand new 18, 19-year-olds voting for the first time. What do you think these voters are going to vote on? What is going to be the issue most pertinent, or issues most pertinent to them?
Well, first thing, superior economic performance is not a guarantee, because Narasimha Rao had the best performance of any 5-year period. The growth rate went from what they used to call as the Hindu rate of growth of 3.5%, to 8% in 5 years. Every year it went on increasing. But his party went to half. Atal Bihari Vajpayee was widely respected. He created a slogan called India Shining. He even advanced the elections by 6 months, on the grounds that, right now is very, very favorable, because many of the state elections BJP had won. So he advanced, and we ended up with almost half. I think we ended up with 60% of the strength we had before. So first principle, economic progress is only a necessary condition but not a sufficient condition. If the economy is really bad, it will go to affect you, definitely. But if the economy is good, it's only a necessary condition. There has to be an emotive factor. Last time it was 2 emotive factors: fighting corruption and Hindutva, the concept of Hindutva. This time, I believe, the sole moving factor for the younger generation is the Ram Mandir. You build it, or you start building it, you are assured of winning the elections. And there is a way to build it, and it's the Prime Minister's call, whether he takes it or not. But I think there's no other way. Campaigning, all this are necessary, but they're not enough.
Having followed the Ram Mandir debate myself now, and I do feel that, I started out with being a little skeptical. Why would a 25-year-old, 20-year-old care about the Ram Mandir? But I have seen how important the issue of Ram Mandir is, and as the public discourse has shaped, and much to your credit, the way you have been able to portray the issue and communicate it, Ram Mandir is going to be an important issue. And again, like I said, because there's paucity of time, I'm going to hand it over to Major Arya. And we have some very important questions about national security that we have lined up. So over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Neha ji. And it's a great honor to be on stage with Dr. Subramanian Swamy. Abhay ji and Neha ji have spoken a lot about him, but I will only say one line. Whenever I hear that song, it reminds me of him. It's a Bengali song, Ekla Chalo Re. And, I have seen Dr. Swamy fighting all alone. Ever since I could I could understand what politics is, or I could understand what, the state is. I've always seen him fighting alone. There was never this thought that there is an army behind him, an army of supporters. He has done what he thought was morally and ethically correct, irrespective of gain and loss. And that is something worthy of honor and respect. National security is what I like to think I specialize in, and my questions to Dr. Swamy are based on a few issues which are very close to my heart emotionally and practically as well. Sir, how important do you think is the rehabilitation of Kashmiri Pandits for the final solution of the Kashmir problem? Because when the Kashmiri Pandits were subjected to genocide, rape, you know the story as well as anybody else does,
Yeah, I know it.
maybe better. Now, India seems to have largely forgotten about the plight of the Kashmiri Pandits. How important is that?
I wouldn't say that we have forgotten.
Sir?
I would say that we think it can be done only second, not first.
Sir?
We need to settle this question of what this country's identity is and how it applies to Kashmir.
Sir?
1947, there was no Pakistan. There was only India. And the British decided to partition you.
Sir?
And they did mischief. They declared all the kings as independent. And the remaining part of India, which is about 2/3 of India then, they divided into India and Pakistan. And in the debate, they made it very clear that our aim is to create two countries. One is a Muslim ruled Pakistan and a Hindu ruled India. And June 48 was the date decided for the independence. Mountbatten advanced it because he came to know that Subhash Chandra Bose is alive. At that time he was, according to me. And I have sufficient evidence to believe that. I mean, whatever material. So the effect of the INA on the Indian Army, Navy, Air Force was so tremendous in 1945 itself, 1946, that the British decision to leave India even after winning the World War II or being part of the victors, they decided they would leave because that has been always their stand right from 1857. If the army is not with us, we leave.
Yes.
We are too small to fight in India. So they advanced it to 15th August. Ambedkar was advocating that if this is the concept, then let there be an exchange of population, a peaceful exchange of population. Ambedkar has gone on record. He was the chairman of the drafting committee of the Constituent Assembly. But there was no time. So in the meantime, Congress leaders, particularly Jawaharlal Nehru, announced that all the Muslims who want to live in India can stay in India. Now, from that on, let me say, and this is my view of thinking, it's not the normal conventional wisdom. The Hindus have always fought. All changes that have taken place, the defeat of the Mughals was due to the Hindus. First Guru Gobind Singh broke their back, then the Marathas finished them in 1795 in Pune, the last battle. But then the British came, and the time the Marathas were weak, they took it over. And again is the Hindu saints, Aurobindo, Ramakrishna Paramahans, spiritually minded people like Bankim Chatterjee, and then Vivekananda. So, the process of these spiritual leaders started raising. It was essentially a Hindu movement, but Gandhi felt that India should not be partitioned. So he made adjustments. So I think we have to make it clear that we regard that this is a Hindu country in which those who identify with the soil of this country, they are also our brothers and sisters. And DNA says that all Muslims have the same DNA as us, Hindus. So they are not descendants of Gauri and Ghazni. Maybe a few strains of blood might be there, but the fact is that the broad 95% or more are people whose DNA is the same as us, which means their ancestors are Hindus. And that process of accepting that is an important part of the Kashmir problem. That the Kashmiri Pandits are not to be seen in majority and minority. In fact, if you take the Kashmir as a whole, the Hindus are in minority, in majority, almost in majority, especially if you include all those people who have left. And the differential population growth rate since 1947. So, what I think our people are thinking, I've had casual conversations and there's been no formal. That somewhere we have to ensure that we have secured physically Kashmir. And you have these Kashmiri Pandits go back, they must be able to live there. We can't create a kind of a gulag or something where the Kashmiri Pandits live, the Pannoon Kashmir idea.
Yes, sir.
It's not a healthy attitude. It's maybe a short term, it can be. My suggestions, therefore, in conclusion is, nobody is going to forget the Kashmiri Pandits. There are too many of them. In my opinion, what we should do is there are about 1 crore ex-servicemen. Of that, 10 lakhs should be given money and weapons and asked to settle down in Kashmir.
Excellent.
And reoccupy those houses which the militants made the Kashmiri Pandits
Yes,
vacated. And create that atmosphere and then have Kashmiri Pandits come. I also think that it is within our capability, potential capability, I'll say, to retake that part of Kashmir which is presently with Pakistan. I also think that we can get China to cooperate in that. Very few people believe it. The Prime Minister doesn't believe it when I tell him. But I have dealt with China. I speak Chinese. I have studied China. I got what everybody thought was impossible to reopen Kailash Mansarovar.
sir.
And in fact, I was the first one to go. I have been there once more in 2016. So, the Chinese psyche, I have studied very carefully, and I am saying to you today that with certain clever steps, which I think we haven't got time for me to go into it, but the Chinese will be on board. And we can retake the remaining part of Kashmir.
The POK, sir.
The POK. Even with the Chinese, the Aksai Chin is the difficult part for negotiation. But Arunachal, they have already agreed McMahon Line is the international boundary with Myanmar in writing.
Sir.
So they get very embarrassed when I bring it out because our people don't bring it out.
Sir.
When I speak to them, I say, how can you oppose McMahon Line because in imperialized, you have already agreed, it's in writing. So then said, okay, when you settle Aksai Chin, we'll give this whole thing, we will not insist on Arunachal. So, and we have had, thousands of years of relations.
Yes, sir.
And there's a deep admiration for it. So, it has to be, Kashmiri Pandit thing has to be seen in an overall thing where they feel secure, they feel this is our land, we got it back. That kind of atmosphere we have.
Absolutely, sir. So now moving on to something which has been on our minds, the nation is talking about it, the parliament has debated it very recently, the Rafale controversy, sir. Now, to my mind, as a military man, I have studied it as much as I could. And one thing hurts me no end at a personal level is that After the Bofors scam, sir, for 35 years we did not induct an artillery piece.
I agree.
And it is only recently, 2 months back, that we inducted 2 brand new guns into the Indian Army for the artillery. Now, the Chief of the Army Staff, General Bipin Rawat, has often said that we are fighting a two-front war, China on the east and Pakistan to the west. So my question to you is this going to be the future where everything that the government does is going to come under the scanner? Because how are we going to secure our borders? How is the army going to be strong, the Navy and the Air Force, if you have a Rafale for each and every single thing they say that there is corruption?
Do you want modern Indian armed forces? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely, sir.
I'll give you an easy formula,
Sir.
but nobody in the country is ready to accept just now.
Sir.
That also I'll tell you in advance.
Sir.
And my government is terribly opposed to the idea.
Sir.
But it's free, and you will become the most modern government in a modern army, air force, navy, amongst the most top 3, top 2, better than China. If we agree to put boots on the ground in Afghanistan and make it a condition with the Americans that you open your warehouses, we'll pick what we want. F-18 is far superior to Rafale.
Yes, sir.
Rafale was tested against all other aeroplanes in Libya, and it was the most fuel inefficient. No country other than India is buying it from its own money. Qatar is buying it because Saudi Arabia is paying the money.
Sir.
Saudi Arabia is paying because they want France to help them on something with Iran, which they can't directly talk to.
Yes, sir.
I can't think of any country. Switzerland had a MOU with Rafale,
Sir.
and then they cancelled it. It's the most fuel inefficient plane. It's the credit of Parikar that he added in new radars stuff and all that. That's why it's a little more expensive.
Yes, sir.
But I would have preferred to have bought the Salt company than bought Rafale
aircraft, sir.
planes. Yes. Therefore, but nothing harm, no harm. Have Rafale also, have F-18 also, have the Euro also has a...
Eurofighter, sir.
Yeah.
Sir.
I agree with you. Your fundamental question is absolutely well taken. We are in a miserable state in terms of facing two enemies at the same time. We don't have to make, as I said, you can win the Chinese over. But breaking Pakistan into 4 should be our long-term strategic objective. Baluchis separate, Sindhi separate, Pakhtunis separate, and residual West Pakistan.
Sir.
So, breaking up of Pakistan should be our goal. Preparing the best armed forces, Navy, Air Force, by any methods. And our strength is our manpower.
Yes.
And one last thing, you're a military man, I'll tell you what the military people told me.
Sir.
I asked them, would you like to die in Afghanistan? They said, if you guarantee my wife a house, my children education right through college, and an adequate income through pensions,
Yes.
we are ready to die for the country. And our captains and all, what bravery they showed in Kargil.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I went up like that, knowing fully well they'll be killed.
Yes.
I mean, such bravery, I don't think any army has witnessed.
Sir.
These sterling quality people need to be given a sense of pride that they reintegrated what was lost of our country and not handed back after a peace treaty.
Sir.
This is the way to approach it.
Absolutely, sir. And with this, I come to my last question, sir. There are many who feel that military power should be an integral part of our foreign policy. Like many other countries, China does it, say America does it so well, has been doing it. And I wrote an article in which I thought, I put my feelings on that piece of paper in which I said that whenever the Prime Minister of India speaks to a foreign power, it should be with the sense that somewhere behind his back, there is INS Arihant, which is our nuclear submarine, floating, in the sense that we need external projection of military power and juxtapose it with foreign policy. Do you think that's a good idea, sir? Do you think we should do it?
Well, it worked in Maldives. In fact, I threatened that we should invade. There was a big reaction.
Sir.
But they knew that I wasn't speaking just like that, out of turn. There was a sympathetic view for what I said. And you see what happened?
Sir.
Even with the Chinese there, they had a free and fair election, lost the election.
Sir.
And now we have this. I think the same thing with Sri Lanka. I brought in Rajpaksha here to address a meeting.
Sir.
And we have, I think, sewn up Sri Lanka. To your question, I will say this. Foreign policy is by intentions. What's your intention? What's the intention of this? What's my intention? What is their intention? And defense capacity is by capacity. If they have got so many planes, we've got to have a matching number. Even though we are bhai or friends. I mean, we don't have to be a Jawaharlal Nehru. Thinking, we take anybody's word. So defense and foreign policy should be separate. You do what you like. In foreign policy, you sing praises and, have personal relations and so on, and say you're a world leader and all that. But military should be told, find out what Pakistan has, what China has, what together. Now I believe that they won't be together if we play our cards well in the foreign affairs field. But as a defense person, I will say, assume that they will come together and prepare for that. So defense preparedness has got nothing to do with whether you are friends or not friends, whether you are trustworthy, whether you are bhai, nothing. That's the mistake of Jawaharlal Nehru.
Yes.
It is intention, it is capacity. Look at the capacity, how much harm they can do to you. For that, you have to have a deterrent. So prepare for that.
Or a counter capacity, sir.
Yeah, that's what you prepare as a deterrent.
Yes, sir.
A counter capacity. If you want, you have double their capacity also, if you can afford it. But foreign policy is purely intention. If they are nice to us, we are nice to them. If they speak courteously, we'll speak courteously to them.
Sir. So I think in a sense what Dr. Swamy says that, there's a famous Chinese saying, and Dr. Swamy would bear with me on this, speak softly but carry a big stick.
Sun Tzu.
Absolutely, sir. So it's very important, and we're talking about a robust defense policy, robust postures, know who we are, know what our capability is, know what we can do to the enemy, right from Kashmir to Rafale, and to the integration and juxtaposition of defense into foreign policy. We've had this delightful conversation with Dr. Swamy, sir. Thank you
May
very
I
much.
add one more Chinese saying?
Absolutely, sir.
Sweat in peace so that you don't bleed in war.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Absolutely. And with that, I join Neha ji in thanking Dr. Swamy. It's a matter of great honor, sir. We keep on listening to you. We keep on reading what you write. And for the first time, I have the privilege to meet you and also speak with you. Thank you very much for this opportunity, sir. It has been fantastic. Neha ji, anything you'd like to add?
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for being here this morning. And thank you, Dr. Swamy. He's got a flight to catch. We're sort of.
What does he want?
He wants
Interact
to
with
ask
you,
a
sir.
question, I think.
One more question I'll ask you.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Mike, please, microphone.
My name is Dr. Sarjeet Dudeja. Sir, I want to have just clarification on what debate is going on in the parliament about Rafale. I was sorry to late be in this. So, can you clarify why these rates are not being disclosed, or why it's just related to technology, or do you think that they will not sell to our neighboring country, this Rafale, same technology? All these things, now China is making ships for Pakistan, that's high tech. So, all these things are open secret. So, what is wrong to display or declare all technology or rates or everything?
Well, you're asking the wrong person. Because as a party man, I can't speak the truth. And by nature, I will not speak a lie. So I don't think there's any need for secrecy. Everybody knows everything. The secrecy is from your own people only. But the Congress has got no clue. They're all half-baked. They don't even know 1/10 of the story. You may remember that I got the 126 planes deal cancelled. At that time, if you go back, I nearly got in a lot of trouble with my colleagues because I announced that if the Prime Minister signs that agreement, which was negotiated by Sonia Gandhi and Kala Bruni, then I'll go to court. And all kinds of threats came that, you'll be thrown out of the party and all. I said, do what you like, but I'll do it. Then I got a call from Parikar, who was, by the way, an IIT student when I contested from that area in Bombay. And he was my booth agent. From that time, I know him. A very fine man. He called up to say that the Prime Minister has asked me to convey to you that we have no intention of that deal. We are going to cancel it and then have a between the two.
So, government to government.
Yeah. Then I asked him, why don't you buy the company? So I think it was not just for Pakistan, I think Rafale and even a paper plane is good enough. But I think there was some place where we wanted, the SALT chairman made a public statement that if India's deal falls through, then I will close the company. We'll have to go into bankruptcy. So somewhere we wanted to, and there's nothing wrong with that, keep the French happy about something or the other.
Sir.
And that's a secret, so I'm not able to say. So I think the deal was fine with me. I do not think that what the opposition is saying is accurate. We could have got a better plane, definitely. But since we had other objectives also, therefore it was worth the money we spent.
Sir, I hope Dr. Swamy has...
Sir, can I add a little more?
No, I have to leave.
Thank you.
Next time.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. On behalf of everybody here, I'd like to again thank you for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure and an honor.
Namaste. We hope you enjoyed this Citti Media content. Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.